I didn't know you were leaving that open for me to say something.
All right. What is up, guys? My name is Jeff slash Godin from, Great Lakes TCG, coming at you with, a long-awaited or anticipated, I guess, purple Luffy deck profile. Joining me is one of my teammates, Devin. He could say hi.
Hello, my name is Devin. Another part of the Great Lakes TCG crew. We're here to give you some info on Purple Luffy because that's our
Yes,
favorite deck.
sir. Yeah, and it's been kind of our favorite deck for, I believe, multiple sets now. Devin
Yeah,
is one of my inspirations for playing this deck and actually topping with it this last weekend, Saturday. And the main
I
reason
was so proud.
I know, and and just to kind of give some props to you is that you took Purple Luffy to how many store treasure cups and what were your positions?
So I took it to 4 store
4.
treasure cups. Where I went. What was it? Yeah, I went. I won one. No, yeah, one. No, I won 3 of them. Yeah, no, I went undefeated all the way until my 4th one.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one I had a chance to win it, but I made a very big misplay and it cost me the game. Uh,
Oof.
so that one should have been the 4th one, but yeah, still 3 straight, and then I ended that night was I think 3-1. So thinking in 4 store treasure cups, I think the end score was like 13-1 or like 12-1, something
Yeah.
like that.
Basically an insane showing, and your deck, from my understanding, is actually fairly similar to mine, like at least the one that I used to win. Starting hand, what am I looking for? Me personally, I'm looking for a ramper, so I can guarantee my curve to 10. So I'll try to mulligan for a Poly, a Miss All Sunday, or a Bon Clay. Typically, if I see like 2 Magellans in hand, depending on the matchup, like if I'm going against Lucci, but I don't see any of my rampers, I still will consider keeping that because just chaining Magellans is still kind of
It's
strong
a
against
3
Lucci.
man
Yeah,
usually.
exactly. So as I just mentioned earlier, like against a Lucci this last weekend, I was able just to chain 3 Magellans in a row, and they just couldn't do anything. So it really is matchup dependent what you decide to pick. If I'm going first, I do kind of mulligan for trying to find a playable 4-drop. Khalifa, I think, is a very underrated 4-drop that you could play right off the bat because
Mm-hmm.
look, because if you're playing like Khalifa into like Captain Kidd or even like not even you don't even need the kid. Once you get to like 8, 9, 10 Dawn, you're gonna start getting so much value off of her, so much value, especially because if you do have that kid, you can actually regain the Dawn that you're Dawn minusing. So like it's basically if you want to attach a
It's
Dawn, yeah, it's just so
it's just a
free.
free queen cycle. It's just an additional queen in the deck. Like if you really
Yeah,
need to filter your hand, that card definitely
yeah.
helps out a lot, especially if you have kid.
And if she
You get the
sticks,
Don right back.
yeah. But if she sticks, it's just value. It's just plus.
Yeah.
Because she draws
Mm-hmm.
2 minus 1. So after the first cycle, she replaces herself. After the second cycle, it's just positive. You're just going positive, and you're able to kind of shape your hand how you need to for the end game. So she's very
Exactly.
underrated. On 4, I typically will avoid playing Bon Clay right off the bat on 4. I don't think it helps us because I'm not playing any 8 drops. So if I were on 4, I play Bon Clay, I go from 4 to 5, and then I go to 7 next turn, but I want a Luffy ability. So it doesn't really help me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Unless I don't see
I
unless I'm
agree.
not seeing Poly or I'm not seeing All Sunday, then sure. But then I'd rather just play him the next turn, go to 8, so I could just do Bon Clay plus another 4-drop. Rather than playing him initially.
Yeah, I agree. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
just to go, I don't think there's much to explain here because this deck hasn't really changed much. It's just every set it gets like 1 or 2 new cards that you kind of put in.
Yep.
So it's really
Mm-hmm.
just my ratios I think are the most important. Going into '08, different than 7.5 is the addition of this 9-cost mom. Some people hate it, some people love it. I personally think it was one of my goats this weekend. I think 9-cost Mom gives Purple Luffy the stability it needs against certain matchups, specifically like against Reiju it helps, against Lucci I found it very, very useful, especially like those turns where it'll just go Sabo, Rebecca, pass, and I'm like, all right, 9 Mom, put your Sabo at the bottom of your life, and then heal a life, and now I'm at 3 life, he's at 4 life or 2 life, doesn't really matter what he's at, because now I have a giant board.
Yeah. And yeah, like Naimo just gives you that extra like cushion, right? Like if you feeling pressured, or like you're like, oh man, if I had 1 extra life, because that was another thing before was like, with you having to take your life for your effect, like you get a little worried that you're taking it too much, or like you're taking it in bad spots or things like that. So like having the 9-Mom being able to give you that life back kind of eases up some of that pressure and like gives you that little life cushion that you might have just needed, because the deck has a lot of counter, so like you can counter most things, but like having that extra life really does like matters like a ton sometimes. So
and the one of my bigger, I would say, uses out of 9-Mom was, and against BY Luffy, it's kind of like a cheeky play. If they put down, say, Kuzans, or sometimes I'll even put Garps into their life, so one of the non-brother cards into their life, because one, it's face up, so it's not going to actually make it back into their hand. Generally speaking, it's going to be trashed through a different effect, through the 5-cost Luffy effect, or it could be trashed through other means. But typically, it won't actually make it back into their hand. So Kuzan's actually one of the best targets for that, especially if they were, because how do I say it? The only way BY Luffy I feel keeps up with this deck is being able to remove our big bodies, so that we can establish, say, a 9-Mom or an Urashima or a Kaido with that high stat line that allows you to swing fairly efficiently at them with Dawn.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the deck, especially against like BY, it's like I personally haven't had too much issues with BY since I've played this deck.
Yeah.
I think I've maybe only lost to 1. And if anything, I think it was just because like I might have just had a bad hand or something. But
yeah,
like,
I mean, it happens. This deck still is high roll. Like it's still, unfortunately, there's still, despite the count, we're still gonna run into some consistency issues.
Yeah, which is, it happens. This is a card game. There's RNG involved. It is what it is. But overall, I mean, you are definitely favored into that matchup for like so. You have you have your Magellans. You have your law blockers. That kind of stuff. You're pressuring them, so like they don't want to take too much life too early. But then it's like if they counter, they don't have their cards for later. It's a weird area where like they have to play around in order like, some people can play it really well, as you saw against Impact on this weekend, but
exactly. No, I mean, it's not. You could always win losing matchups. I mean, he went on to lose a BY Luffy into Lucci matchup, which is typically fairly BY Luffy, favored. So it's not, nothing's set in stone. Now, just to kind of quickly go over, and speaking of matchups, just to kind of quickly go over Purple Luffy's matchups, and please, agree or disagree with me. Most people seem to think that Purple Luffy's really good into black, which I actually would agree. I think I personally feel fairly favored into black. Lucci, I would say, is at least a 60-40, if not a little bit better. Black Yellow Luffy, I would also put a 60-40, if not a little bit better.
Yeah.
Black Luffy, I would say, is one of the harder black decks for me personally to go into. I think it really depends on what curve I'm on. So if I go first against them, I feel much more favored than if I were to go second against them. And the reason being is I guess this is kind of played into my favor, because every black Luffy I went into like 1 dice roll, but they gave me first, which is good, because what they don't realize is if they're able to stick a Kuzan on 4 and then put 1 Dawn on later to make that Kuzan a 5 cost, then Polly isn't able to hit him on my curve. So unless if they did give me second, unless I see Magellan into Poly, so I lock them at that 4, you know what I mean? So I lock them at that 4 Dawn play the next turn through the use of Magellan, I would typically have some trouble. So I would say that's one of the matchups, and you'll see this. I'll be saying this a little bit later. I know you play this a little bit differently than I do, so it's nice to see success through different play styles. Me personally, I've always prioritized my curve to get to 10 prior to doing any Dawn minusing. So I typically won't, use, blocker laws effect early on. If I were to have Kid in hand and I'm on my 8 Dawn turn or 7 Dawn turn, I wouldn't play Kid in activate ability. I would actually just play it out vanilla, then activate ability when swinging the next turn. And because personally, I want to hit that 10 so that I can play double Magellan, or I could play, Magellan Queen, or just double 5-drop in general. Like, even Kid with Magellan's fine. And I feel like that's when the deck starts pulling ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so there's different ways to play it, right? Like most decks in the format, right? So like for myself, I don't mind playing minusers early,
Agreed.
especially if it disrupts my opponent's like curve plays, right? Like playing Magellans early, like I don't mind playing them early, or like doing 4-drop law early, like I don't mind it because it disrupts my opponent's plans.
Yeah.
So then it gives me time to get to that late game anyway, while also having stuff on board to pressure. So, I mean, I do that a lot. Like, you'll see me play multiple Magellans in the game because, like, why not? So going back to like the thing you said about the Black Luffy, I just had a quick thought on that. It was like you said it's you have a tough time against it depending on the curve. I myself haven't had too much issues. Like for me, I think that matchup 70-30. Like,
oh wow, okay, so you've had a much better experience than I have. No, yeah, so
I think that matchup is so Luffy favorite is crazy, or like purple Luffy favorite.
I mean, I guess my issue is like if they're able to establish that Kuzan and kind of like have it survive, and then the following turn they could, no matter what I put down, they're playing like then they start chaining a couple Sanjis, and the Sanjis are able to pop all our 5k character or 5-cost characters. So getting into that like, cycle, yes, they can start answering whatever we're putting out. That's what I'm trying to say. Not and it's always close. Like it's not like, oh, I'm gonna get blown out of the water by them. Like so I can agree to that. I don't think.
I think I think if they make you go second, I think the matchup becomes closer. I think maybe at best a 50-50 if they make you go second. Okay. But I'd say like more likely it's like a 55-45, 60-40 if they make you go second.
I can agree. But I can agree with that.
It's definitely 70-30. It's definitely 70-30.
No, so. Agreed. I think going first, I feel a lot more comfortable. That I can agree with. All right.
But it's mainly just getting them to stick that Kuzan with the leader effect. That's the main thing. It's like if they can do that. But...
No, that is like quote unquote the play. I don't see a lot of them running Borsalinos either, but I think a couple of them are running 1 or 2 in their decks. But that didn't pop up at all for my weekend. Moving forward, though, Nami, I think that's the premier reason why to play Purple Luffy, I would say.
That's the freest matchup.
It is a fairly free matchup. You go wide, you go fast. Even Magellans are good there because it limits their Dawn that they can use turn by turn. Kaido, I would say, is probably one of the better cards in that matchup, only because it's you're establishing a rush character. Urishima's pretty good. Anything that swings 9 or higher gets you a lot of value during that match. And otherwise, the reason why we're good is because into this specific Nami deck profiles, or into this specific Nami set, swinging 6s is really strong. And as you could see, a majority of our characters, I think 6 is like the most common stat line. You have the kids, you have the Sanjis, you have the queens, the Polys.
6 and 9 is
or the pitch ones, the Polys, Magellans. 6 and 9. That's all you want.
Like the nice numbers. Yeah, those are like like premier numbers.
Yeah.
In the deck. So Nami with like. I think White Snake it is that gives them +1.
Yeah, and that's why you want that leader. 6k hit. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah,
so and then you hit perfect numbers each time you swing for that one. So.
Yeah, so it just worked out in our favor. And then you also have blocker law if they ever end up having like 7 in hand, or at any point you could just kind of mill them. Now, another matchup that I've heard, and I've had a different experience in this. I've heard that people are thinking Bonnie is a bad matchup for Purple Luffy. Personally, I don't see that. I think I know, because I know you also don't see that because you've had a lot of good success against Bonnie.
Yeah, I think I haven't lost to a single Bonnie.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And actually, I was testing Bonnie like very early on in 8.0, and I played against a Purple Luffy, and they completely destroyed me. And I think the way Bonnie wins kind of has, like, they have to double drop Dofi. One, they have to survive, but two, they have to double drop Dofi. And if I see a Magellan, or if I see like Polly on curve, and I'm able to pop like in a Rouge, I think it's just kind of game. Because so if you just think about their curve, if they're putting down a 4 cost, so say they're going second, so I think they actually do prefer to go second. Say they go second, they're putting down an Rouge on 4, I'm popping it with Polly on my 7, I'm going to 10 next turn, no matter what they put down. If they put down, say, like a Carrot, or a Bonnie, or usually a Cavendish, either of their 5 like cost characters, it's getting blown up by Kaido the next turn. Or my Linlin can put it into life the next turn. Granted, if they end up, doing Basil Hawkins, that's fine, but then they won't have a Dawn to restand. If you know what I mean. So they won't, because that'll use all 6 of their Dawn, especially if I'm popping the Rouge the turn prior. So it just gets into a situation where I'm able to answer Bonnie's board every single turn on their even curve, that is, with my big drops, and as long as I curve out correctly. And then on top of that, Magellan's keeping them from hitting that double Dofi turn. Now, granted, you don't say we don't get there. Say we don't see Magellan. Say we don't see our Polys. Then, if they are able to get to, say, 10 cost Dofi and then double chain 10 cost Dofi, I think we start having trouble then.
I think the main thing in that matchup, like you said, is the Magellans and things, and like Polys to answer stuff, and Kaidos and Linlins to answer. But the main thing is, like, the main thing in that matchup specifically you want to try and avoid is them dropping a 9 cost Zoro. Because if they get a 9 cost Zoro down on you safely, like, that game's just over.
9 cost Zoro could be tough. I personally have, so typically against Bonnie, I'll try to deter them from putting down a 9 cost Zoro as much as possible, because I'm trying to put them under so much pressure where if they want to waste their 9 or 10 Dawn turn on putting Zoro pass, they're probably going to die the next turn. Like, I don't want them to be able to survive the following turn. Exactly. So that's kind of the situation where I'll have like 4 or 5, 6 bodies, 5 bodies on board, swinging 6s like every turn, and kind of just draining the Bonnie's hand. If they end up surviving through that onslaught, kudos to them. They probably do end up winning that game. So that's kind of covers Bonnie. Now, I believe the next leader that we should talk about, because all we talked about so far is like good or even matchups. I think going into our bad matchups, it would probably be closer to Zoro. So you would know this personally. I actually played Zoro into you during our 40-man Battle of the Best event that GreatLakes-TCG hosted, and personally, and the stats will show this on Eggman's website, personally, I feel like Zoro's like a 70-30 favorite against Purple Luffy. I don't think it has much trouble, but there are some cards Purple Luffy can tech in, namely why I'm playing Kamazo and why I'm playing one of the Captain Kid. I feel like if you're able to establish these bodies, you can sometimes keep up with the aggression, and then by using 9 moms, you're able to actually gain back some of that advantage. And then the games I have won against Zoro are games where I'm establishing 3 or 4 blockers, like 3 or 4 of these like Queen, Sanji's kids, and then just chaining 9 moms, and then I'm just swinging basically 3 life in one turn, another 3 life in another turn, and you kind of go for game like all at once. Like within 2 turns, you're winning game.
Yeah. So going back to what you said, so like our match, right? Like our match that we had that day. And I was also kind of testing / like experimenting with a couple cards. So like in that matchup, I will say my hand was a little bricked. Like I like no counter. I was
and that
taking
happens
5s
with
and
purple
6s.
Luffy. Yeah.
And it happens, right?
Yeah, like it just happens.
But for me, I don't feel like it's that unfavored, to be honest. I think it's really more. I think it's lean closer to 50-50 from me playing against the deck.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like you mainly want to see in that matchup like your Paulies, your you want to see, like you said, the Kamazos to help clear up boards. Like
Correct.
Those are like your main 2 cards that you want. And then like Captain Kids and 9 Moms are like really big. Those are like your important cards, I guess, in that matchup. But you also just like you really want to like starve to a degree, right? Because like you don't want to give Zoro cards. You don't want to give them the ability to get more rushers to try and kill you. So you want to like deal with their board as much as possible, run them out of resources, and then you try and go for game, because you do have a lot of like go for game potential in this deck. So
yeah,
like with Kaidos and things like in your large board that you're gonna have and stuff. So
it's actually very funny that you kind of, when you verbalize it like that, it sounds very similar to very similar to the Purple Luffy versus Blue Dofi matchup coming up in 8-5 that we've been testing on the side. I know, but like it feels very similar.
I'm already over that deck, man. I'm already over it.
Yeah, Blue Dofi is going to be a menace, and we're working on what we can to try to figure it out in the meantime. But that'll be a whole separate can of worms that we'll open up on a different video, hopefully. But I think that's all the relevant meta decks that I can think of. At least they're all the ones I played over the weekend. Anything else that you want to talk about?
There's like other rogue ones, but like people aren't really playing them too much. But I guess I'll mention them. It's like Calgara and Pudding. Calgara is like a 70-30. They just do not have any way to stop you.
Yeah. You have removal. They don't have removal. All their cards are going to be 6 cost or less, which are perfect numbers for Linlin and Kaido. Like they don't have any. Like they have 1 rusher and ace, but that's about it. And as long as you count for that, you're not going to get surprised by anything.
Yeah. Plus their leader effect makes them take life, and
exactly.
Like, they don't want to take life in the deck that pressures them. So like it's just bad. And then Pudding, you have Magellan's and 4 cost law. Like that's all you really need in that matchup.
Yeah, you kind of just take first from them, right? And then just kind of beat their face in.
Those cards do enough as is.
Yeah, no, agreed. I like I said, I'm not really worried about those decks.
Yep.
So one thing that I do want to go over, and I think it's important to talk about, because these are the questions I'm getting a lot. I've had at least 10 people message me specifically about this topic. And that's playing with suboptimal lines. What I mean by that is, typically, everyone knows what Purple Luffy wants to do. You want to go first or second. If you're going first, you drop a 4-drop. Going you curve out 4 into 7. You play Poly or Miss All Sunday or a Ramper generally. Get to 10 the next turn. Double 5-drop. Play down or 9. 9-drop Kaido, 9-drop Linlin, and go from there. That's typically the quote unquote perfect curve, right? If you go second, you drop Magellan on 5, and then you go from 5 Dawn to 4 Dawn, and you basically play out that going. Then you essentially transition into a going first curve, but now you have a Magellan on the field, which is a body that's typically hard to remove, because I think a lot of people are not playing the 6-cost Brooks. Now.
Yeah.
Now, so then what do we do if we don't see our Magellans going second, and to kind of convert that? Or what do we do if we don't see Poly? One thing I've done to try to make this a little bit more consistent, because remember, I personally prefer to get to my 10 curve before Dawn minusing, but I don't always see those cards. So that's why I have a 1 of Bon Clay, and I have 2 of the Miss All Sundays, because personally, I think that Miss All Sundays. So the reason why I'm actually running 1 of Bon Clay is because of counter. Now, if I were to run 3 Miss All Sundays, I'd be running just a little bit too much non-counter that I'm not comfortable with. Versus Bon Clay also gives me another 4-drop to play on the first turn. It just gave me like a one little tech flexibility slot that I actually really appreciated, and I can go into that matchup. It was against a Lucci. Actually, I think it was Deep Patel that I didn't see any of my rampers. Like, I didn't see any polys, so I was actually like chaining Magellans essentially that whole game. So anyway, because you don't play the same way I do, I was actually hoping to get your thoughts. What do you do when you don't see your quote-unquote optimal line? Do you have like a secondary line that you kind of fall back on?
Yeah. So like, if I don't have like obviously like the God curve or like what people would call it or whatever, but you know, I'm a more like aggressive life taker. So like I'll take the life to go to in ramp. I'll play like a bunch of my vanillas or like I'll aggressively play and play 4-drop laws just to get cards out of hand. So like it really just depends on the matchup and the cards I have in my hand. But like sometimes I'll just straight up just play a Sanji on 6 Don. Like I'll just play a Sanji blocker on 6 Don to get a body on board. I'll play just a kid blocker and swing. Like I don't mind doing that. So like, it just really depends. But like you do want to get to your 10 Don turn. It's just depends on the cards you have in your hand, how fast you get there. Because like now with 9 moms, I am a lot, more enticed to take more of my life to get to 10 Don.
Yeah.
And use my Magellans and 4-drop laws and 7-drop kids early and stuff because I know I have that cushion playing that card later. Or like I'll even play a queen. Like if I hands that bad, I'll just play queens like early just to get them on board, cycle my hand out. And sure, I'll lose the Don, but like I'll get it back eventually, and then I can start using them to attack. So like they're also attackers at the same time. So like it really is just.
I would say
on,
No, yeah, continue.
No, I was just saying like. I think it is just dependent on like the matchup and what you have in hand and things like that. That really changes how you play it.
I would say the biggest mistake I've seen people do just right off the bat is not swing with their blockers. For some reason, they'll establish a law blocker and never swing with it. I just don't understand why. No, you swing with your board when you're playing Purple Luffy. You want to actually be more of an aggressive type deck.
Yeah, because like you have the counter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the deck plays so much counter.
I play 14.
You can counter out of stuff easily.
+2 0
I also
events.
play 14.
Exactly. I think that's the sweet spot number. Now, one thing I will say, because it's so funny that you and I play so differently yet get very similar results with this deck. And Eggman actually mentioned this on stream when I was featured on stream. He was like, every time he comes on and watches me, I was sitting comfortably at 3 life or more. I'm someone that only takes my life twice a game, generally, unless I'm playing one of those, like I'm trying to go for a game, then I'll take an extra life and ramp an extra Dawn just to add that to my my swings. But I'm typically someone that will only I prioritize hitting 10, so I'm ramping once in the beginning, then I ramp twice the second time, and then I kind of just then that's it. I'm done ramping, and then at that point I just like start accumulating life with my Linlands and just building that cushion. So it's just really funny how differently we play. But like I said, like you have just as much results as I do, at least in the treasure cop. Like you went like 13-1, I think we counted. So it's just so interesting to me. Me personally, the reason why I am running Miss All Sunday and Bon Clay, and some people are not, is mostly because these cards will help me catch up if I do get put in positions that I don't see my ultimate line, or I'm not seeing Magellan to Poly, for instance. So if I have a Bon Clay and Blocker Law in hand, on 4, I'll swing 5, see if they take. I can play Blocker Law, use ability, because I know the following turn, I don't need to be at 7 to play Poly, because I could just use Bon Clay to ramp that Dawn back, and then life ability, and then I'm right back where I want to be. I'm on curve to hit my curve, if that makes sense. And the same thing with Sunday. So if I am on my 4 Dawn turn and I use Bond Clay, or sorry, and I use Law to go down to 3, get cards out of my opponent's hand, then I can recover with Missile Sunday because I'll be going to 5, and then I can take leader ability and go to, so I go from 5 to 6 with Sunday. Leader ability takes me up to 8. I'm still hitting 10 the next turn.
Right.
So
yeah.
These cards also double as not only do they provide me like an extra copy of Poly, but they also double as when I do want to take, or when I do want to, like, I guess, play Alti Page 1 early on 4, or play Blocker Law and use ability on 4, I only do so if I see a Bon Clay or Missile Sunday in hand, because I want to make sure I recover that Dawn loss. But then it becomes a really strong play if I go, like, Alti Page 1 into Sunday. Like, it's just huge because I'm drawing off that Sunday still.
And you establish another body,
and you establish another body.
You go even in hand.
Yep, exactly. So that's kind of the way I play it. And that's typically like the rule. I don't know. People have been asking, like, hey, do you do Alti Page 1 anymore? Because against Sokka, people were still debating, do you still want to Alti Page 1 right off the bat, or just play Page 1? And like, even back in 05, we were asking these same questions. And now we have some, because back then we didn't have Bon Clay, but now we have some extra tools to work with. It was funny that you said that sometimes on 6 you just play Sanji, and for me in my head I'm like, I'm never on 6. I'm always either on 7 or because I'm like I'm never. I know. These are
nothing in my hand at all, but like
I know.
Yeah, I'll just be like, hey, I'll be on like I'll take a life, go to 7 Dawn, and then I'll swing 6 play Sanji, right? Like, so I don't mind.
Exactly. But one thing I think I mentioned earlier, and I want to tell you about, is my match against Deep Patel, because I think this is really funny. I didn't see my Poly. He's playing Lucci. I didn't see my Polys at all. I didn't see my Bon Clays or my Sundays. So this was a scenario where I was going first. So I play, I believe I play Blocker Law, no ability, because I didn't have any ramper, because I don't want to, even he did take the life, it doesn't matter. I play Blocker Law, no ability. And then on my 7 Dawn turn, I had nothing to play. Nothing except, like, I had 3 Magellans in hand. So that game is the very first game I feel like I just like, all right, Magellan on 7, swing 7. Magellan on 8, swing 8. Magellan on 9, swing. And actually, I think I did Magellan Alti Page 1. That's what I did. I did Magellan into Alti Page 1 on my 9 Dawn turn. And what does he do to that? What does he do with that? He literally could not answer that board. Because that's putting out 3 bodies. And then I remember him specifically. It was very, very, very funny. I remember him. He played 2 Khalifas. Because he had nothing else to play. So he played Khalifa to Dawn to minus cost for something, and he'll draw 2 trash 2. He trashed 2 jacks the first time. Did the same thing the next turn. Then he trashed a Gecko and either a Kaido or a Jack. I forgot. Or it wasn't an Isho. Maybe it was a Gecko and an Isho. Regardless, basically 4 of his top end were in hand, gone. And so it was insanely funny to me, because he just knew he was not getting there at all. Those are dead cards in hand. He was not going to have the chance to play a single one of those, if not 2. So yeah.
I mean, that's what 3 Magellans.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And then just a little sneak peek into OP09 or OP08.5. People have been taking Magellans out of the deck, and I've been seeing some more trouble.
Magellan, baby.
Yeah, I think this card, unfortunately, it might not be a 4 of, but I think we might have to run some element of it to stay, pretty good against the black decks. I know black-yellow is still going to be around. I know Lucci's still going to be around, if not the most prevalent deck. A lot of people are switching to Dofi, but I feel like Lucci can still compete.
It definitely can.
Yeah.
And we still want to be able to play into other matchups. Not
like even Bonnie too, because remember, the Magellan's really good into Bonnie, and I feel like Bonnie's going to come out as a potential, like using the 8 cost kid, as a potential Dofi answer. Because I think most Dofis are not on Red Rock right now. And they might adjust. They could adjust, but I think most of them are playing, White Tiger for the mirror, and also that helps against our purple Luffy, and it also helps against other like black decks, being able to bottom deck certain targets.
Yeah.
Namely like Sabos, especially against like black yellow. So that's kind of it for the deck on my end. I think we talked about a lot of the matchups. We talked about kind of like the lines. You kind of just play your hand. You have to think a certain way in terms of what you need to prioritize. For me, it's I prioritize my curve to 10, and then by then I could just free for all. For you, you just play your hand as it comes. Even if you're dawn minusing, you don't mind taking that extra life. So for me, I only take 2 life typically a game, sometimes 3. You don't mind taking 3 or 4 life on your end, it seems, just to kind of.
Yeah.
Well, but because you're establishing bodies, you're filtering your hand with queens, you're doing what you need to do. So
yeah, it's all about how you play.
Exactly.
Whatever fits your play style with the deck, you play it
Exactly.
how you feel is more comfortable for you. Don't feel like you're locked into one way of playing the deck. You can play it multiple ways, but as long as the end result is like, the deck still does what it does. You want to pressure your opponent, while also like disrupting their game plan. And you want to tempo out your board as much as possible. That way you can keep up in the game as well, even though you're minusing.
So I hope that answers a lot of the questions. Once again, this is our first time doing these types of videos from the GreatLakes-TCG standpoint.
Yes. Please give us some
I need feedback.
Helpful critique and feedback and comments.
Yes.
Let us know what we can do better. That
exactly.
Kind of stuff, so we can move forward doing more.